A few months ago, in the spring, I found myself in a strange limbo. I graduated college a semester early, a decision that felt brilliant when I was buried in assignments, but left me adrift with too much free time. My full-time job wasn't starting until June, and most of my friends were tied up with finals or classes. I was stuck in Pennsylvania, floating between life phases, feeling restless and unproductive. That aimless period made me jump at any chance to feel useful. When my mom asked me to check on my Uncle Rick's beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, I didn't hesitate. It was a simple task: drive just over 2 hours, ensure nothing was leaking or damaged, and handle minor maintenance to save Rick some cash. The house, a massive place that hosts my extended family's rowdy summer gatherings, felt like a familiar escape. I set out on a random weekday, maybe a Thursday, in the late afternoon, which, looking back, wasn't the smartest choice. The drive was smooth, and when I arrived, everything seemed normal. I worked through Rick's checklist: faucets, breakers, property walkthrough. The house was fine, but eerily quiet without the usual chaos of family board games and drunken laughter. The silence was unsettling. I'm used to the house bursting with noise. 25 relatives crammed together, playing games and drinking too much. Alone, it felt abandoned, almost spooky. I texted my mom to say I'd stay overnight to avoid driving in the dark, a decision she supported. I thanked Rick, made some food, and settled in for the night. With the house to myself, I decided to treat myself to the master bedroom on the second floor. It's a luxurious space with a private bathroom, a huge walk-in closet, and an incredibly comfortable bed. During family gatherings, I'm usually stuck in a cramped third-floor room, so this felt like a rare indulgence. I climbed into bed around midnight and fell asleep quickly. Something jolted me awake in the middle of the night. I found myself groggy. I was certain I'd heard a noise from my closet, like something had fallen. My heart raced as I glanced toward my closet door, but my body refused to move. It wasn't sleep paralysis, not exactly. I could move, but fear paralyzed me in place, dreading what might be lurking. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to sleep, but just as I did, a muffled thump came from the closet. I squinted my eyes, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, but I knew I hadn't. Then, suddenly, as if some force took over, I froze completely. True paralysis this time. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly, as the closet door slowly creaked open. Through my barely open eyes, I saw a shadowy figure step into the room. It stood beside my bed, motionless, watching me. Seconds stretched into an eternity, maybe 20 minutes in total, before it silently turned and left. My stomach churned as whispers of footsteps creaked, not downstairs, but up to the third floor, where the only staircase led with no way out. My heart was terrified. My mind screamed to act, but I couldn't overpower an intruder, especially if they were armed. After agonizing moments, I whispered for grab my phone and dialed 911, whispering that someone was in the house. I locked my bedroom door and waited, heart pounding, until police lights flashed outside my window. They arrived faster than I expected. I ran downstairs, threw open my door, and nearly collapsed with relief. The officers stormed inside, sweeping the house swiftly. They returned quickly, claiming it was empty. I was stunned, disbelief. I was sure I'd heard footsteps go upstairs, with no way out. They insisted that intruder must have slipped past me in my panic, unnoticed. I wasn't convinced enough to let them leave, so I called Rick. He was furious and demanded they search again, stressing my safety. I followed, watching officers check every closet, under beds, even tapping walls for hidden spaces. They double-checked doors and windows, and that's when they found it. A third-floor bedroom window, the one I normally sleep in, was unlocked. One officer stayed by my door, while another went outside to my back deck. I followed, too scared to stay inside. The officer scanned my property with his flashlight, then aimed it at my roof. My blood ran cold, froze. There, sitting on my roof, was shivering a bald man in tattered clothes, looking like he'd never bathed in years. The next hour was a blur of chaos. The police got him down and cuffed him swiftly. They said he was likely homeless, squatting in my house for days, maybe longer. He didn't answer their questions about how he got in or why he was in my closet, just stared blankly. They took him away, but the mystery lingered. How had he reached my roof? Why my closet? Rick and I couldn't make sense of it at all. The roof was inaccessible from my ground, and my family urged Rick to boost security, but he refused for reasons I don't grasp. The thought that I'd almost slept in that third-floor room chills me still. Had I been there, that night might have ended differently. That experience left me rattled, doubting safety in familiar spaces. Meanwhile, my buddy Mike invited me to his family's beach house on my Jersey shore that summer. It's a breathtaking property, passed down for generations. Mike's grandparents once lived there, but after their recent passing, it stood mostly dormant. His parents considered renting it out, but finding off-season tenants was tough, so he had free rein. In mid-July, Mike asked if I'd join for a weekend getaway. I had no plans, and the idea of chilling at a stunning beach house was enticing. It wasn't a wild party, just a relaxed escape. We lived nearby, so he picked me up that Friday. I tossed my duffel in his trunk, and we drove off, arriving around 6 p.m. That night, the house had that classic beachy smell, salty air mixed with aged wood, nostalgic yet comforting. We dropped my bags in upstairs bedrooms and grabbed subs from a local shop. That evening, we strolled the beach, fishing with rods Mike brought along. It was less about catching fish than soaking in the calm, with waves. We met two girls our age, barefoot along my shore. Mike, ever my charmer, struck up a chat. They were locals. We talked lightly, swapped numbers, laughed. Later, we found a quiet beach nook Mike knew, hidden from lights, private. It was my kind of night that made life's stresses vanish into waves. The next morning, we jogged a few miles on my boardwalk. A breeze off my ocean kept us cool. The day slipped by lazily, lounging, sun-soaking. By evening, Mike floated hitting seaside bars, but we were beat. Sun had drained us in that good way. Tired. We crashed early. Crashed. After midnight's hush, a piercing screech ripped my sleep apart. A smoke detector's shrill alarm, slicing silence. I stumbled out, scanning for smoke's source. Not my room, not second floor above. Panicked, I roused Mike. We bolted a third, lights blazing, expecting flames. Nothing. We scoured, cursing for that noise's root. No fire, no smoke, just eerie calm. In a bedroom, under pillow, I found it, a black box, walkie-talkie size, blinking red, and one switch. I flipped it, silence. Mike's eyes wide. We'd never seen it. What was this thing? We debated an hour. What was, how it got there, why it screamed. No sense emerged. Mike swore his kin hadn't visited in months. I trusted him. Who'd hide it? Then it struck. I flipped that switch. My beeping roared, died off. Manual. Someone was here. Mike's call hit 911. I barred my door. We waited, hearts racing, for cops. They came, swept my house. We stood outside. Their news froze us. Third-floor windows wide, boots flipped, drawers gutted. My device room trashed, though neat when we'd searched. Tuck gone. No intruder, no clues, just chaos, my prints, weapons. Cops said lock windows, call if trouble stirred. My hand shook. Someone been here, maybe unhinged. We stayed. Two rattled the drive, left. At dawn, nothing else struck. But questions gnawed. Did they ever leave? Years prior, at 22, fresh from college, another beach house shook my core. I lived home in PA, saving, rent-free, blissful. Yet, a month in, unease crept. One weekend, Lynn's invite, her family's beach house, a private beach paradise, and modern, tucked away, drew me. Her parents' wealth, their home sleek, a bunker, not a villa, stunned. We bunked in one room, giggling. 3 nights, perfect escape. I'm no party girl. Hiking, games, light sips, but I'd loosen up, sip that beach vibe. Night 1, we stargazed on their beach. Claws, white music waves. A flicker glowed far shore, a flashlight, swaying. It mesmerized, eerie. Soon, figures neared, laughing. 3 or 4, strolling. Just kids, our age, maybe, easing our tents. There were 3 guys, beachy, beach older. Their vibe clicked. Thea, flirty, swooned. We drank, laughed, and meshed an hour. Easy real. They invited. I yawned, split. My pals went. I washed, crashed in bunk alone. A piece. 3:33's FaceTime. Lynn's scream woke me. Thea, Sab kidnapped. Grab her keys. My heart stopped. Ice adrenaline. I dressed, shaking, sprinting downstairs. Why'd she call me, not cops? Tea she had. Needed me fast. I followed her, voice guiding. Gate keys, car go. I sped left, beachside 10. Her car's make direction. I flew, reckless, nobodied out. Spotted ahead, matched. I called 911. Trailed far. Cops' lights flashed soon. They didn't bolt. Thought unrelated. The scream tore through the night, sharp and desperate, swallowed by the crashing waves before it could reach another soul. I froze on the deserted boardwalk of Blackthorn Beach, North Carolina, my breath catching as the wind carried a faint, guttural moan from the shore. My flashlight flickered, its beam trembling over the dunes, where something moved. Too tall, too wrong, slipping into the shadows. I should have turned back, but the pull of that scream, human yet not, dragged me toward the sand. I'd come to Blackthorn for solitude, a week to escape the grind of my city job. The town was a ghost of its summer self, shuttered shops, empty motels, and a beach locals avoided after dark. My rental cottage sat on a lonely stretch, its windows rattling in the constant wind. The first night, I'd noticed the silence, broken only by the ocean's relentless roar. Locals whispered about Blackthorn's history of the gas station, where I stocked up. A grizzled cashier muttered about shipwrecks and missing fishermen, his eyes darting to the beach beyond. Don't walk the shore at night, he warned, bagging my groceries. I laughed it off, but his words clung to me like damp sand. That scream wasn't my first warning. The previous evening, I found strange tracks outside my cottage. Long, webbed imprints, too large for any animal I knew. They led from the dunes to my porch, stopping at the door. I'd swept them away, blaming my imagination, but sleep didn't come easy. The air felt heavy, watchful. Tonight, restless, I'd wandered to the boardwalk, ignoring the cashier's advice. The scream had come from the north, where the beach curved into jagged cliffs. My flashlight caught glints of wet sand and driftwood, but the dunes loomed like silent sentinels. I stepped on a beach, my sneakers sinking, heart pounding. The wind carried a stench, rotten fish, and something sweeter, like decay. I gagged, covering my nose, and swept my light across the shore. A shape lay ahead, half buried in the sand. A pile of seaweed, I thought, until it twitched. My beam froze on it, revealing a mass of glistening limbs, tangled and wrong. I stumbled back, my light shaking. The thing didn't move again, but the sand around it rippled, as if something beneath stirred. I turned to run, but another sound stopped me, a low, wet gurgle from the cliffs. It wasn't human, but it mimicked pain, luring me closer. My legs moved against my will. The cliffs rose like black teeth against the moonless sky. My flashlight caught a cave mouth, its edges slick with algae. The gurgle came from within, echoing off wet stone. I stood at the entrance, pulse racing, knowing I should flee. But the sound shifted, almost a word. My name, hissed in a voice like drowning. I stepped inside, the cave swallowing my light. The air was thick, salty, and warm, like breath. My beam fell on carvings in the walls, spirals and grotesque figures, half human, half fish, with hollow eyes. The gurgle grew louder, joined by a scraping, like claws on stone. I turned to run, but the cave mouth was gone. Panic clawed my chest. I swung my flashlight, its beam catching glints of movement, scuttling shapes just beyond the light. The carvings seemed to writhe, their eyes following me. The gurgle became laughter, low and mocking, filling the cave. I backed away, my heel catching on something soft. I looked down, my light revealing a hand, pale, webbed, with two long fingers, reaching from the floor. It grabbed my ankle, cold and slimy, yanking me down. I screamed, kicking free, and scrambled to my feet. The laughter stopped, replaced by a chorus of hisses, closing in. My flashlight died, plunging me into darkness. Blind, I ran, hands scraping walls, tripping over unseen rocks. The hisses followed, sharp and hungry, their claws clicking behind me. My foot splashed into water. Ankle deep, icy, reeking of rot. I waded forward, praying for an exit, but the water rose to my knees, then my waist. Something brushed my leg, sinuous and alive. I flailed, my hand finding a ledge. I hauled myself up, gasping, and felt a draft, air from somewhere ahead. The hisses grew frantic, splashing below. I crawled, stones cutting my palms, until my fingers found an opening. I squeezed through, tumbling onto wet sand, the ocean's roar deafening. I was back on the beach, the cliffs behind me. My flashlight was gone, but starlight showed the shore stretching empty. The hisses faded, but the air felt wrong, charged with menace. I ran for the boardwalk, my lungs burning, not daring to look back. The cottage's lights glowed ahead, a beacon of safety. I burst inside, locking the door, my hands shaking. The windows rattled harder, the wind howling like a living thing. I checked every room, every closet, finding nothing but my own fear. Exhausted, I sank onto the couch, clutching a kitchen knife, listening to the storm outside. Sleep was impossible. At dawn, I packed my bag, desperate to leave Blackthorn. But as I stepped outside, I froze. The sand around the cottage was covered in tracks, hundreds of web prints, circling the house, leading to the porch. They stopped at the door, as if something had stood there, waiting. I dropped my bag, my knees weak. I drove to the gas station, the cashier's face paling when I told him what happened. "You saw them," he whispered, crossing himself. "The drowned ones. They've claimed that beach for centuries." He refused to say more, shoving my change at me. I left, vowing never to return. But Blackthorn didn't let me go. That night, in a motel 3 towns away, I woke to a scratching at my window. I pulled the curtain, heart in my throat, and saw nothing but wet streaks on the glass, like webbed fingers had pressed there. The smell of rot lingered, faint but unmistakable. I moved inland, far from any coast, but the nightmares followed. I see the cave, the carvings, and those hands reaching from the dark. Sometimes I hear my name in the wind, hissed in that drowning voice. I avoid water, showers, lakes, even rain, terrified of what might emerge. Last week, I found sand in my shoes, gritty and damp, though I hadn't been near a beach in months. A faint gurgle woke me last night, coming from the bathroom. I didn't check. I can't. Blackthorn's reach is long, and I fear the drowned ones aren't done with me.